What's up, y'all? Mr. Pulati here. So, it's the night before. It's February 4th. It's actually probably now like after midnight, February 5th. Um, so, there's a live letter coming out, or an announcement ship thing. Um, they haven't really said it's just a live letter. I think it's going to be more like a fan festival collage put together. So these are some of my predictions and and wants, and honestly, I think needs. Although I think a lot of the needs that I think that needs. Maybe there's not a lot of people in the community that kind of want the same needs as me. It'd just be nice. So I don't have anything written down. I'm just going to kind of shoot from the hip, from this hip, and just kind of give you my predictions. So first of all, I think the biggest thing is I think that with 6.0 of the next expansion, which hopefully I'm sure we should have already had all kinds of information about 6.0. Really tonight or this month, February, we should have been getting like the final trailer, if the whole COVID thing had it taken over. But because of that, stuff kind of got pushed around and canceled and stuff like that. So we would have already known tons of stuff, obviously. So that's no bold prediction. But my bold prediction is that with 6.0, you have to do, from a business standpoint, it doesn't make sense halfway through the Shadowbringers expansion that you drop access to, or that you drop, whatever, bring access to the Microsoft Xbox community midway through an expansion. It just doesn't make any sense. You're basically asking them to buy the expansion pack halfway through, after you've already had sales, the initial big push, you've had the expansion on sale and stuff. It just didn't make sense. Even if you had it ready, it just didn't make sense to drop it halfway through an expansion. Maybe towards the back half of the expansion, maybe you grant access. So my thing is I think they're going to allow pre-order purchases for Xbox owners. I think 14's coming to Xbox, and there it is. I said it. How it's rolled out and stuff, that could be any which way. But in my opinion, I think, and I was pretty much right with how they did Blue Mage, dropping Blue Mage, and here comes the star of the show. She might peek in here. Her name's Chanel. I don't know if you can see her on camera or not. But I think what they're going to do is sometime between now and the launch of 6.0, they're going to drop pre-order access for everybody, including Xbox. They're going to have a big to-do about it. Could be tonight. I would say I'd even have Phil Spencer come out on the stage or join us via Zoom and say, have Yoshi P say, I've got a friend of mine, his name's Phil, he's here, he wants to say something. And maybe even, because Yoshi P's not not the type to hog the big announcements. Obviously he wants to do it, but I think he's more of a if my team shines, I shine. And I think when the Xbox comes in, it'll be either be a co thing, but I think he passed the mic. So I think I can see Phil Spencer coming in and saying, "Hey guys, welcome to Xbox." Where I want to welcome my people to Final Fantasy type thing. So I think sometime between now and when 6.0 comes out, there's going to be a pre-order, and I think it's going to be for PlayStation, PC, and Xbox users. They'll all get this feature, so that way that any new users, they'll have access to the whole game up to 6.0 with a pre-order. And that way, if you pre-order when you can pre-order, you're going to have access. You're going to be ready to go when 6.0 comes out. Otherwise, it just doesn't make any sense. Any other way to do it, to give Xbox owners access to Final Fantasy XIV and not give them some sort of a timed access before the official launch of 6.0 to get caught up with everyone else that's been doing it for years. So that's right there it is. When 6.0 drops, Xbox users will be brought in. There's going to be a time period before 6.0 drops that people that pre-order the new expansion will be able to participate in everything. It'll be basically an unlimited, minorly paid free trial for all systems. And I think that's what's going to happen with the 6.0. Now, another thing is there's a housing crisis. There's been housing crisis in Final Fantasy XIV since the day they opened the doors, so to speak. And so my thing is you can't introduce Xbox users without hugely, I mean, big amount of new homes for everybody, because you're going to have people that are PC, Mac, and PlayStation users that still don't have a house, and yet you're going to incorporate this huge new population that's going to be wanting houses. So my thing is you've got to bring in more housing and a massive amount of new housing. So I think if they were going to change housing some way, I think with the new expansion is how they're going to do it. Here's another thing. There's no way, oh man. So there's no way that they're going to bring Ishgard housing. There's no way they're going to open it before they let Xbox users have a chance at it. There's just no way that they're going to open Ishgard housing and then later, after Ishgard's filled up, bring in Xbox users. I just don't. It doesn't make any good business standpoint. Sorry, thirsty. Sorry. So yeah, it just doesn't make any good business sense that you would bring Xbox users in and have them already screwed on previous places for housing, and then also eliminate them from even getting a possibility of Ishgard housing. So here's another prediction, is that we don't get housing right away with 6.0. I think it comes maybe a month and a half after 6.0, where that gives Xbox users the amount of time to get money, get acquainted with the game, play the expansion. Even if you're a fresh user day one, build up your stuff, get adjusted to the game. Excuse me, and then open Ishgard housing. It just, again, and this is all based on that Yoshi P's been wanting to have Switch access, Nintendo access. So maybe with the drop of the Switch Pro, which you heard it here, folks, here first, I believe it should be called Switch Up. I think that's my name for it, and that's my ideas. But anyways, I'm going to call it the Switch Up. So when they bring out the Switch Up, then it could be powerful enough to run Final Fantasy XIV. And if they do that or they do not, I just know that Yoshi P said in many interviews that he wants this game on as many systems as possible. So it only makes sense that they're going to try to get it on Nintendo. If it comes to Nintendo first before Xbox, I would be shocked. I think a lot of people would be shocked, and I think that might mean it might not come to Xbox. But I just there's been a couple games recently that they've had talks about cross-play, and I think that this is definitely going to be. I mean, they've stepped on the pond a little bit, or they've tried to get across the frozen pond, but this is definitely going to be the huge icebreaker, bringing Final Fantasy XIV to Xbox with cross-play. So that's my two big bold predictions, is that housing is going to be implemented with Ishgard housing will be implemented later after launch, so that way Xbox users and possibly Switch Up users can have access to housing, be a fair housing market. Now, I haven't played Final Fantasy XIV since October, maybe November-ish. I think it was they had like a 7-day free trial. I think I kind of started the Relic Quest, which that's something that I felt like they definitely needed to have, was the Relic Quest. I'm going to get a quick pause right here. Okay, so I just wanted to make sure we're still recording, because I'm recording on my Note 8 and I can't see when I'm recording, so it doesn't make no sense. Awesome setup here, guy. So here's my thing: is the Relic is something that it takes, like, you can go get the generic Relic and it takes like 2 seconds to get it. Okay, so but when you sit there and you have to go and it takes all this time to power up a Relic, and then after the final stage of the Relic comes out, you get a Savage that drops, and the Relic is instantly not as good as the Savage. And the Savage, you can literally pay someone to, with like Gil, to get it clear, and you've instantly got the Relic drop. And so, to me, the Savage, I mean, I'm not saying that the Savage drops, and even insane level drops, or like whatever levels they want to go, I'm not saying that those don't have a place in in-game gear, but I'm just saying, like, that's something that I hated with Final Fantasy XI, was that it took all this time to get Relic and Empyrean weapons, and there's 3 of them. I can't never remember the 3. I always forget one. But it took a lot of Gil, a lot of time, and a lot of patience to get these weapons, and then they were just instantly, to me, the Relic type, that's like long-term quest weapons, should be the best weapon, period. People's going to argue and say, no, it takes a lot of skill to get the Savage. No, it doesn't. Like, you can get with a group of people and instantly get a clear, and you instantly get a drop if it drops. And you just pay for it, and that's it. Like, with a Relic, you have to actually, if you want to pay for it, then you got to do like a lot of runs, get a lot of drops, get a lot of upgrades. You got to do a lot of stuff. So to me, I think by earning the Relic, I think that makes it more prestigious than just a fancy glow stick that you got from a hard dungeon that you ran for 2 hours and you got lucky and got the drop. Like, that's the only thing about the Savage drops, is that it's more RNG than it is than getting the skill, or even if it takes more skill and whatever to get the Savage drops when they're still relevant, like when they first drop or whatever, it's still just luck. You could sit there. I know that's why they have the 100 coins, so that way if you run it 100 times, you're guaranteed to get the weapon that you want. So you can't go and do anything one time and get the Relic upgrade for that current patch row. So that's my whole argument. And there's 2 different camps there, but that's my opinion. I think that when you work for something long term, it should always be the top thing. Maybe if you have to do some upgrades to, like, if they had like a Savage Relic type system where like in patch, we'll say 5.1, it drops a Relic, you can keep that same glamour, but then you have to maybe do like a 5.2 Savage to get something that powers up that Savage Relic. Then I can see that definitely being better than the long-term Relic that you have to, like basically the Relic system that we have now. But just getting a random drop like that's a slap in the face for people that's taken all that time to do all the content in order to, even if it was just, getting 1,000 clears or whatever to upgrade your Relic. That's my opinion anyways. I think they need to redo something with housing. I think that, I don't know well, first of all, when they, this was back like the 5.0 first fan festival live letter, they mentioned player run farms, and it was like there was kind of like a joke like Farmville 14 or Fantasy Farm 14, like. But to me, I was like, oh my God, like, when are we getting these player run farms? Like, everything. Like, I mean, for the next year, I've been sitting there, like, like 6 months, 8 months, like, oh my God, a live letter's coming out. Like, I'm sitting there, like, oh man, when are they going to drop more info on the player run farms? And they said something, I think, in the first live letter, and then I think in the second fan festival for leading up to 5.0 release, they showed like a video clip, and it looked like it was maybe something in the Crystarium, and then that was it. Like nothing, literally nothing. And they said this is 5.0, so I'm sitting here thinking like it's coming within 5.0, like maybe it's definitely going to come 5.1. I mean, we're now 5.45. Like it's been a year since they mentioned these player run farms, and there hasn't been any info about it. And I think it's because the housing system is just so jacked up that like they can't implement something that's going to change the game and not have people have access to that content. If it's going to be something, it could just be. That's another thing that I just dislike about the leadership with that. I'm not saying it's Yoshi P, because he didn't build the ship. He's just been driving the ship, and he's been steering the ship for a while, but he didn't build the ship. And so I think maybe with the next Final Fantasy MMO, we'll get hopefully a better game. But like I said, he didn't build the ship. He didn't create the game. He's just been, taking it forward. He did make 2.0, Realm Reborn, but still, he didn't design the structure of the house. He only designed the interior, not the shape of the house, basically. Y'all know what I'm talking about. And so, like, I think Final Fantasy is probably one of the better MMOs out there. Their crafting pre 99 level cap is probably one of the best crafting systems and most in-depth crafting system that's out there. But once you hit level 99, it's just trash, in my opinion. I mean, I haven't, and this is another thing, like, people's going to say, oh, what's your crafting levels, like, what star level gear are you making and recipes are you making? I haven't, because to me, it went from 1 to 99, and then it went someplace else. It went into a direction that wasn't prior 1 to 99. And I don't know, so the whole crafting thing is, I don't know, like, they need to do something, either start, like, do post 99 levels somehow. They've added like an end game to with the whole Ishgard rebuilding, which they called it end game crafting, but to me it was more the same, reskinned in a different direction on the same vehicle. By that I mean when you do collectibles, it was just basically an expansion and add-on of the collectible system, and instead of just turning them in for turning the stuff in for just different tokens, you turned it in to upgrade Ishgard, which was a good concept on paper, and I don't think it played out very well. That's just my opinion. So I think they could have done a lot more better things with that. I think instead of like making tables, and I mean it was it was a reskinned collectible system, where if you would have had gatherers gather raw materials and then had crafters make usable materials, like if you would have had a gatherer gather wood, and then a carpenter make planks, or a blacksmith or an armorer make nails and stuff like that, and you made materials, which then you donated to the cause, would have made more sense. And you still, I mean, even if you would have had to have done two or three different level, or two or three different crafts, like they did, basically you would have two or three crafts when you make a table, because you need, you know, leather, or you need fabric, and then you need wood, and you need metal. So they still could have done that, but instead of having, like, you had the gatherers go get raw material, and then your crafters could have made like usable material, instead of donating like probably what, 100,000, 200,000 tables. I mean, there's nothing, that's just goofy, you know, or whatever it was, you know. There's nothing lore based that shows that there's anywhere near that type of population where you would need 200,000 tables, or, you know, 500,000 tables, you know, or 500,000 whatever. It was good on paper, and it just did not roll out, in my opinion, the way it should have. Just like I don't think housing, I think housing should have been done in a different, I think housing should have been done even on a personal house level. I think it should have been done how things are done in the workshop. So I think you should have had to have, rather, if you just went out and bought materials, I think that's what you should have had to have done with the house. Is you should have had to went out, and you should have had to gotten, you know, either bought it on the marketplace, or gathered it and refined the materials for your house, and then turned it into like the housing person, and then those materials was used to build your house. Instead, it was just, I mean, it was just a cheapened down version of that. Like, you paid like $1 million for your house lot permit, and then you just went and bought, or you just got a generic, like, say you bought like a, you know, like the, I don't know, like one of the different decor designs, like it was like the wooded area for Gridania, and then like the, like a an Oriental look, if you had the the Oriental Japanese housing area in Ugani, or I'm like drawing a blank here, Shirgani or whatever. It just automatically plopped this house down. Like, I mean, obviously there's magic and stuff, but to me, when the housing came out, the craft market was such at a lull that if they would have done the introduction of having to have like raw materials put into workable materials, and then had those materials put into making your house. Obviously, that's what they did with the workshops later for different add-ons. But if they had done that free company workshop, I just think it would have done so much better for the game. I think it would have been implemented a lot better. I don't know why they didn't do that, whatever. So yeah, I think they need to do something with housing, and then hopefully we'll get our player-run farms. And I hope that it'll be something like the housing was in Final Fantasy XI, which there were so many less features in Final Fantasy XI's housing. It was more or less like the apartments that we have now. But I almost feel like Final Fantasy XI's housing was way better than what we have in 14. In 14, you have a lot more freedom, but in 11, it wasn't just about like when you put in like a fisher's net or something. It gave you, like, you know, it spiked your fishing attributes. You know, like they put in some workbenches or whatever that you could do for crafting, but it was like, I mean, they put them in when the cap was at like 70, and it only gave you a bonus till 50. So I mean, it didn't make any sense. Like, and again, they had to do that because of the shortcomings of the housing. And If they would have had it to where everyone could have had a house, then if the cap was 70, you're going to get that bonus 270. But when the housing was and is so broken that not everyone can have a house, not everyone can have access to those attribute upgrades, then that's when they have to basically break the game, break the concept that they had on the drawing board. I'm positively sure of that, because you can't you can't have stuff in the game that isn't accessible to everybody, that is because of a random lottery system where if you spam this button enough, you got lucky enough to get a house. So, sorry. So that's my thing. I think there's a lot of problems with 14. I think that they do a lot of stuff to keep real money traders from doing things. There was a lot of things. I don't know. Now I don't know if that was stuff that was already put in the game pre 2.0, but I know when A Realm Reborn came out, there's a lot of things that I noticed that I was like, wow, I think this is the only reason why this is like this is because it deters real money traders. But yet there's still bots all over the place, and that's another thing. It's like you got people flying around Gridania all day, and it's like, geez, what's going on here? You get a train of 50 people that looks like someone just like went like that to enter their name on a keyboard, and it's like every day. It's like the botting problem in 14 is ridiculous, and yet there's so many aspects of the game that I think are broken, or that was broke on purpose to try to deter real money trading, and yet it's done nothing. So I don't know, maybe without those things it would have been worse, but I mean it's bad now, and it's probably one of the better anti-cheat games that's out there. So I don't know. Another thing is that, and this is, I'm more or less getting in, this is kind of like a semi-prediction, semi-rant. I'm tired of playing Final Fantasy XIV, the Ballet Saga. And if you've played 14, the dungeons, it doesn't matter what job you bring to the dungeon, you are a ballerina. And you have to know the dance that you have to perform in order to clear the dungeon. And it's pretty simple to know what I'm saying, because there's a dance that you have to learn in order where to be, where to stand. It's not even really, I mean, yeah, there's a damage meter, but it's not even really about doing damage. I mean, sometimes there's DPS checks, but to me it's not even really about doing damage to the enemy. It's just about like, oh, you got to stand over here when this light flashes, you got to turn to the right, or the mechanics of the dungeons is just over the top ridiculousness. I mean, I guess obviously there's a lot of people that enjoy that, but to me that's just, I mean, you're being a ballerina. I don't have anything against dancing or ballerina, but basically every dungeon is just a harder dance script that you have to learn. Like, I mean, basically, like, it's a ballerina. It's a ballerina show. And when I play Final Fantasy XI, I know a lot of people hasn't played 11, and they're probably like, geez, dude, why don't you just play 11 if you hate 14 so much? I enjoy 14. It was an upgrade on a lot of things over 11, but I think 11 did so many great things that if you've played 11, you're constantly going to compare that. And if you haven't played 11, I would suggest that maybe you get a PC and you go play 11 and you realize what people mean when they compare 14 to 11 to 14. So in 11, you had to have powerful white mage like healing gear. You had to have powerful DPS gear. You had to have powerful tank gear, which obviously you still need that in 14, but it's not as important. Like, I can go and do current patch content and not even have current patch gear. Like, I can have, like, you can go in, like, if you need to have item level 430 average to get in, it's not that hard to get 430. I mean, you can have 430 from doing, like, one thing a couple times from the patch before. Or just, it's not, you can get current level gear, or like current gear to basically it. I just feel like 14's not a tiered progression that you need armor and equipment in order to get to the next. It's not tiered. It's more linear. It's just like you're on a roller coaster that turns out to be a ballerina show, and you just kind of go through the walkthrough. Whereas with 11, you was not beating content unless you had some of the best gear possible. Like you had to have, in order, like this was the last, not expansion, but the last patch. This was the height of last patch. I don't know. Let's just say current patch. Let's say new patch drops. In order to do this content, you had to have some pretty good gear from the last content. And could you do this without having without having the prior good content gear? Yes. Was you going to clear this without having good gear? No. And to me, it's like every time that there's a patch that comes out, yes, there's an item level wall that you need to pass, but like I'm saying, you can go in there, say it was a 430 item level. Everyone in your group can have item level 430, and it's a cakewalk. Whereas I think they need to. I seen Work to Game say something. I didn't watch the video, but it said something. The title or something was mid-level content needs to be higher or something. I feel that totally. It needs to be in a tiered progression. What I mean is, you need to beat A to beat B. You can't skip B and go from A to C, in order to beat C. I guess it doesn't need to be like, if you were really good at your job, you could take a group of people that beat Dungeon A, and they could skip B without getting the gear from B to go to C, if they was really, really good. But even mediocres would have to go from A to B to get to C, and it's just not that. It's just run through it. You got people putting out guides, day one clears. I mean, it's a joke. And I think I don't know. It's not a joke to the devs that are like spending, months on months developing this content. That it's a walkthrough. It's like, it's like building a building. It takes months, sometimes a year, to build this building, and then you've walked through it once. The day it opened, you went through the whole thing. It's done, and that's fine in real life, but in video games, that just is something that I hate, and it's and then now you're gonna have people say, "Oh, well, what about Savage content?" Well, what about Savage content? It's the exact same ballerina dance with a little bit higher level to it. I don't do Savage content because I think it's a joke. Because I think the drops from it's a joke. Yeah, there's been there's never been anything that dropped from Savage content that was like, oh my god, I have got to get that. I have to practice. I have to get that. And I'm sure there's a lot of people that are just the exact opposite. They're like, oh my god, that looks so awesome. I got to have that for my character. So maybe if there was something that was like, oh my god, that looks so awesome, I got to have it, I might get into Savage. But to me, it's just, I don't enjoy the dungeon system that Final Fantasy XIV has. And so I can still enjoy the game. I can still like the game. I just don't like the ballerina act that they go through every dungeon. And it's like, oh man, let's hide these mechanics, because as soon as you see how you're supposed to do the dance, it's done. You know what I'm saying? It's not like, oh my god, we wiped halfway through because we was just destroyed because we didn't have good enough gear. It was like, oh my god, because like everyone loses their stuff because halfway through the raid, oh my god, 15 people didn't turn the right direction, so now we got wiped out. You know, it had nothing to do with their gear. It was just because they wasn't facing the right direction during the, you know, they didn't do the right facing, or they was in the wrong area. You know, they were standing in the wrong spot during the dance, and that's so annoying. Um, sorry, so annoying to me that's what Final Fantasy 14. It's like, it's almost, I don't know. To me, it's just not. It's not how an RPG should be. I think an RPG should be about. I think it should be tiered. I think it should be, you have to have this gear in order to do this, and it should be about damage litigation. About, you got to have people that's healing, and you got to have good gear, and you got to be able to do damage. Which, yes, it's that's exactly what it is. But it's more about being in the right place at the right time, getting a few hits on the mobs, and then run around like a bunch of idiots. Try to get in the right place at the right time. Try not to wipe the group because you're standing facing this the wrong way. And to me, that's just so annoying. Like I do the content to get through the main story quests, but I don't even really do a lot of the side quests just because there's no point in doing it. Even, like, I don't know. So that's something that hopefully they'll change with 6.0, but I believe it'll probably take a whole new Final Fantasy MMO to actually change the way that dungeons are done or did. It's just something that I just don't like. Saying that, I still think that Final Fantasy 14 is probably the best MMO out there. I haven't played WoW, so I can't speak to that because I don't have a PC. That I just don't like the keyboard mouse. I just can't do it. I've raised on a console with a controller. So, I'm trying to think if there was anything else we wanted to speak on. The housing, the Xbox. So yeah, I'm just excited. I hope everyone else is excited. You know, if they had any thoughts on anything that I said, you can drop a comment down below. If you like my style, my shoot from the hip, non-graphical, no green screen, like that blue screen. You know, I don't do a lot of content. I would like to. I would like to. Don't really need to say that I need to, but yeah. I mean, I'm